Well, greetings, people of the internet. Unky Joe here, Unky Joe's Playhouse. Guess what? I nearly burned the house down. Yep, I'm not kidding. I'm exaggerating just a little. Ow. Just a little bit. But yeah, we nearly did have a fire, and you're gonna find out why here in just a minute. But first, let's talk about it. What I'm doing, and what this video is all about. This video is about it's another part of my series of taking Unky Joe's Playhouse off grid. And for those of you that don't know the task at hand, it is to make Unky Joe's Playhouse, the studio you see, my little workshop here, fully running off of solar and battery power, okay? Not the whole house, eventually the whole house, but for now, all we want to do is power all the wonderful toys in here at Unky Joe's Playhouse off of solar and battery, because frankly, electricity is getting really, really expensive. Not that it's scarce or anything, but it's just getting expensive. And all these servers, they take up a lot of electricity to run them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that's why I don't run them all the time. And then the other thing is, we had the power go out a couple of Februaries ago. We're coming up on the second year of that infamous freak winter storm that we have here about once every 50 or 60 years. And our power folks couldn't keep up. They couldn't keep the lights on. So that made it rather inconvenient for things like, heat and cooking and, just generally living and staying warm. So I don't ever want to go through that again. I want to be as prepared as I can. So worst case scenario, I could always run some extension cords into here, into my battery bank and my solar, and I could power the home on solar and battery. At least that's the plan. And the reason is mainly money. Solar, even though the prices of solar panels have dropped precipitously and you get more bang out of a solar panel, I have 300 and 400 watt solar panels right now. They're still not cheap, and they do require a significant investment. Then you got to have somewhere to put them. Well, that's problem number 2 is solved. I've got an acre of land, and I could just put them all over my property. You need to have a pretty unobstructed view of the southern sky so that you can get, without a bunch of trees interfering and shading your panels. I've got that covered. Then you've got to run the wire from the panels into the house, into this thing called, a solar charge controller inverter, right there. And you got the breakers to kind of protect the wire, and then you got to put the panels in series versus parallel, which we'll be covering in an upcoming video. All that costs money. All it takes time. And if you're not the king of cheap like Unky Joe is, all that is going to cost you money. Well, if your energy bill is averaging around $225 a month, you're only spending about $2,500 a year for electricity. And to think you're going to power everything in your house off of solar, that's kind of a pipe dream. Well, you could, but you're going to need to supplement it with the grid or something else, whether it be natural gas or some other, some other energy source. It's a bit of a misnomer to think you're going to power your house off solar. That's going to be very expensive. And then there's the cost of batteries, because solar is no good to you if you can't store it and use it later, because it's either feast or famine when it comes to solar. You're going to have your best time is going to be in the spring and summer months, and your worst time is going to be fall and winter to collect solar. So your panels will produce about a third of what they normally would in the summertime and the wintertime, if you're lucky. So, and you got to have a lot of panels. And then, so you got all this energy coming in during the summer, but it's wasted because you got nowhere to spend it on, nothing to spend it on. So if you generate a kilowatt of electricity every hour off your solar panels, but you're only consuming 500 watts, where does that extra power go? Well, for me, it's going to go it's going to go into these batteries here. But those things are expensive, my friend. A 12 volt 100 amp hour battery typically costs right now, you can get them as low as $269, but normally they're around $300. And if you're talking about a big 48 volt 100 amp hour battery like in a rack battery, they're in the $1,400 range, and that's not even including the shipping to get them to your door. This video today I'm the king of cheap, you know. This video today is all about building your own battery. The pluses and the minuses of it. Did you see what I just did there? Plus and minus battery, electricity, get it? Yeah. The negatives and the positives. Oh, I did it again. I'm so brilliant. But, you know, the ins and the outs of building your own battery and what you should be aware of and what to avoid. Now, initially when I got started, the big thing you have to decide is whether you're going to go with a 12 volt, 24 volt, or 48 volt system. I have elected to go right down the middle and get a 24 volt system. The long and the short of it is with the 12 volt system, you're dealing with bigger cables because you have lower voltage pushing higher amperage through a cable, and the cables have to be really big, and that can get expensive. Copper is not cheap. If you go with the 24 volt route, you cut your amperage in half that the voltage needs to push that same current through a thinner wire. So at 48 volt, you can have even smaller size wires. They can handle more current at a higher voltage. That's why your electricity coming to your house is at about 10 or 20,000 volts on really skinny pieces of wire, because it's more effective. So I opted to go with the 24 volt system. So there's a 12 volt 100 amp hour battery. So two of those would run me $620. Okay. So when I got my start, I decided to go with one of these ampere time batteries just to get my feet wet. And I started with 12 volt and quickly realized that, yeah, I'm going to like doing 24 volt better. And so will you probably. Go with the higher voltage if you can afford it. But this is the really, really expensive part of doing solar is these batteries, okay? And this battery, I got it originally at $299. It's gone up to $309.99. You can get some of these as low as $269, I think. I'll show you one of those here in a minute. But I went with an ampere time, and then I went with a Redodo battery. I put two 12 volt batteries. I put them together in series, which doubles their voltage. So I got a 24 volt 100 amp hour battery by combining two of these together for about $600, and that's how I got my start. And I'm glad I went with the 24 volt system because the wire is quite a bit smaller than would be required for a 12 volt system. Now the other battery I got was from a brand called Redodo. They used to be called, I forget what they were called. They had a different name. And they got in trouble for using that name in the United States. These are all Chinese companies that make these batteries. So, good luck finding an American manufacturer to make these batteries, and it's really a shame. But I digress. So I bought one of these. I bought one of the ampere time, and I put them together in series for a 12 volt battery. And then, thanks to the power of the internet and a great YouTube channel made by Will Prowse, I came across this site called EEL Battery, and they're a Chinese company, but they have a storefront here in the United States. And I came across these grade A Eve 3.2 volt 100 amp hour grade A genuine LIFEPO battery cells USA stock. Now, when you go to purchase batteries, do not get them off Alibaba or AliExpress or any of those others. Don't get them off the eBays or the Evil Bays. Go to a trusted authority, and I trust Will Prowse. He has links to several companies that do business here in the U.S., and if a deal is too good to be true, it usually is. Now, these cells are only $58 a piece, and being the king of cheap, I bought them because all I want to start with is a 100 amp hour battery. So in order to make a 24 volt 100 amp hour battery, you have to get 8 of these cells. 8 times 3.2 is over 24 volts, but it's between 24 and 28 volts is what you run power-wise. And they're only $58 for a 100 amp hour battery. And that doesn't include shipping, so add about $10 for shipping per battery. I think 8 batteries shipped to my door were $68 a battery. Okay? Now, the other thing you're going to need is something called a BMS. But just to give you an example of what these numbers mean here, I could have gone with these batteries, the 3.2 volt, 280 amp hour cells. So these cells are nearly 3 times more capacity than these cells. That's why these are 130 a piece, and these are only 60 a piece. So next time when I go to build my next battery, I'll be getting some of these larger cells because, it's just, the price per watt is compatible. Now, everybody yells at me and says, Joe, but you can just get a rack battery and you can get it for $1,400. Yeah, but a 48 volt rack battery or a 24 volt. Yeah, but they're only 100 amp hours. And this battery that I'm building now cost me under $700 to build myself. So why would I pay double than that plus $100 in shipping to get a battery in a box when I could just build it myself? Uncle Joe, it's a king of cheap. Now, some of the other stuff you're going to need is a BMS, and I went with the JK BMS right here. This one's I think I paid $70 for the BMS I got. And what that does is it manages all the individual cells and prevents them from 1, being undercharged, 2, being overcharged, 3, being charged when the temperature is too low. All of these things can damage the battery and affect its lifespan. And then you're going to need things like bus bars, like these things, in order to connect the batteries together. And then you're going to need things like insulation terminals to cover the batteries to keep you from the mishap that nearly killed me. Well, again, I'm exaggerating. That nearly caused me a fire in my home. So you got to keep all this stuff in mind. You are going to be making a significant investment, whether you build the battery yourself or whether you buy one outright. But goodness gracious, it's so much more fun to build a battery on your own. Now, the other thing I also did was I went ahead and got a different manufacturer's brand of BMS, a Dolly BMS. I've heard good things about both the JK and the Dolly BMS, and I wanted to get them both in here and decide which was best for me. Because, what's good for the goose is not always good for the gander. Now, JK BMS, Andy over at the Off-Grid Garage in Australia, if you've never checked out his channel and you're interested in this is where I do most of my learning is from this guy. Taught me all about batteries, capacity, testing, all that stuff. Again, Off-Grid Garage. Go look at Andy's videos. He's a German expat that lives in Australia. And he did a test with the Dolly BMS as well. So I went ahead and got one of these to build my second battery, which we'll cover in another video. But these are all the kind of things you got to be thinking about. These are the costs and the equipment that's going to be involved in, building a battery. Now, the other thing you need to keep in mind when building a battery is you've got wire. You've got the connectors. Now, how are you going to crimp those connectors? All these are things you need to be aware of. And you need to do these cables properly. You are dealing with, while not high voltages, you are dealing with high currents. So remember, it's the amps that kill you, not the volts. So you got to be careful there. And if you're going to be dealing with a 48 volt battery, as a lot of people do, that is getting close to high voltage, and it can, be damaging. Things can catch on fire if you develop a short circuit. You saw, or you will see, all these battery terminals are kind of exposed and out there and go, just drop a screwdriver on me, see what happens. And so you got to be mindful of this. So I want to be clear one more time. These are not tutorial videos on how to build your own battery. These are how I built it. You do this at your own risk. Don't blame me if you burn your house to the ground. Be mindful of this. You need to be aware of the dangers of electricity. And if you're not at all familiar with electrical, and even pros make mistakes, okay? if you're not at all familiar with batteries and how electrical stuff works, then stay away from this. Hire a professional, because you can get into a lot of trouble. You can burn your house to the ground and your insurance will go, sorry, it's your own fault. You kind of did this to yourself. So be aware of that as you move forward into this solar adventure with me or on your own. So today's video is all about building your own battery and the steps I had to go through to do that. So I'm going to play some footage and I'll do a little narration and you'll learn as we go. We'll talk about testing the batteries and that kind of thing. And then we'll come back at the end and we'll sum it all up and go from there. So I'm hoping you guys really enjoy this video. This video has been about a month in the making. My last video on solar was a month ago, and it was about getting new panels. And it has taken me an actual month to get the cells in. I had to order them. They were in stock here in the U.S. But then the BMS and the cables and a bunch of the other stuff had to come over on a slow boat from China, so I had to wait for it. And in the meantime, I built a small kind of little mock-up of a battery. So, and we'll be covering all that on this video. I'm hoping I can fit it all into one part. If not, we'll do a two-parter. But yeah, how about I stop babbling and you start watching? So, 2 boxes. Let's see what's in here. It doesn't feel like batteries. They're awful light to be batteries, it feels like. But these are only 100 amp hour cells, but still, we'll see. Alright, so looks like they have sent me flexible bus bars. Well, not flexible, but they've sent me some bus bars. So there they are. They've just kind of put the foam in there like that. And like that. And there are the batteries. I'll have to wait on the BMS and the battery covers. Yeah, I don't see it in here. I see more bus bars and nuts, but I don't see anything else I'm supposed to be having. Unless they tucked it in here with the batteries. Yeah, just 4 more batteries. So the first thing I decided it would be a good idea to do is to come up with some sort of naming scheme for the cells, which I did. And I printed out the labels and came up with a date code a code of cell number and then the month and the date. The month and the year. So cell number 1 would be 1-1222 because I got them on the 12th month of 2022. Etc. And that just helps me keep track of where the cells came from, what battery bank they go into and whatnot. And so, and I'm old school, so I had to go find a piece of paper and I'm taking cell voltages to see what voltage they came in at. They come into you about 20 or 30% state of charge. That's what the law requires. They can't be charged any higher than that when they're shipped. Now these aren't like lithium ion batteries where you risk of explosion or bursting into flames, so they're a little more lax with shipping these kind of batteries. I believe they're even allowed on airplanes, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, so that's what I was doing here, getting the voltages, just checking the cells out, make sure they were all, had some sort of charge on them. They were all pretty damn close, as you can see here. And then the next thing I was going to do is start charging each cell up to 3.65 volts. And the charger I have, you can set it for either constant current or constant voltage. I did constant voltage. Now, I'm jumping ahead a bit here. The reason all these cells are in parallel is because I'm doing what's called balancing. And so after I charge the cells fully up, you put them all together in parallel for about a day or two. And then they will all equally, the current will flow between them equally, and all of them will have the same, what's called state of charge. And it's easier to do that before they're put into a pack because you it just, you can control the individual batteries and make sure they're equally charged. A little bit hard to do when they're in a pack. It can be done, and we'll cover that later as we go on. Now, the battery cells came in 1 week, and then the BMS, which is what I'm unboxing here, came in about a week and a half later. And so the JKBMS is the brand. And of course it comes with, you see there are no directions in there. It comes with the balance leads, that's what those red ones are. And then it came with covers, which would come in real handy if they'd sent enough of them, but they didn't. Now, what I'm doing here is laying out the batteries in series, and I'm getting ready to make a battery out of it. Actually, let me rephrase that. I'm laying out the cells in order to form a battery. So this is going to be a 24-volt battery, so it's going to require 8 cells. And you put the poles opposite of one another so that you can take the bus bars and go positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. And then your last negative and your first positive are the beginning and end of the battery. And I noticed I had one turned wrong there, so I corrected it. But yeah, and you notice I'm wearing gloves, and I'm also wearing glasses. You should always wear safety gear and whatnot. And now what I'm doing is just putting the bus bars on, just to make sure that I've got it right. Yep, and then the last negative is down there by my legs, and the first positive, or the positive, is up there in the top. Now you notice I just put that bar on the top. That's going to come back and haunt Unky Joe. Now the next thing I'm doing is I was seeing if I had enough battery covers, and I don't, because ideally you want to keep your batteries terminals covered, but I didn't have the thing to do it. Now I had to put ring terminals on the end of all these balance leads and on the end of the actual BMS as well, so that's what I was doing there. And now I'm attaching all the balance leads, and you see I'm being careful to wearing gloves and holding the leads, holding the wires so they don't spin around the wrong way, because I want all of these leads to come up at the middle of the battery. You know, it'll just be easier to arrange them and to organize them later. And then I'm tightening up each bus bar on each cell. So each balance lead goes on the positive of every battery in your pack, and then you have another balance lead that goes on the most negative cable of your battery, and then you have a final power cable for the BMS, which goes on the last or first positive, most positive of your battery. I know it's a bit confusing, but when I do a detailed battery video later, I'll explain that to you in more detail. Now, I always tell people, be careful around electronics, and I need to learn to take my own advice. And I thought I was being careful, but it was getting late, I was getting tired, and you see the potential for danger there with those bus bars that are on the beginning and the end of the battery. Here I was checking all the voltages on the leads just to make sure, and then I'm getting ready to put ring terminals on the end of the BMS. You see me fitting them on there on those blue cables. They have to be, pounded on there with a crimper, and then you have to put heat shrink on. So I'm measuring all that out so I can get that all done. And I don't have a big crimper. The one I have is you hit it with a sledgehammer on the floor. So that's what I was doing, putting the leads on. Anyway, each one of those red wires, the balance leads, have to be installed correctly. You plug that into the battery balancer, that thing right there, and then you apply the power, as you can see I'm doing here, onto the end. So I'm just getting everything organized and getting it put around, so it all works correctly. And I'm going to bring my charger on here because I was having some trouble getting the BMS to turn on. And as it turns out, I had one of the leads was not connected. You see I have on that uppermost positive lead, I have one balance wire connected. But what I didn't connect, and here I was trying, they say, to connect a voltage between the blue and the black. to get it to turn on. That didn't work. The problem was I didn't have the voltage lead, which is the last lead of those wires, hooked up to my positive. So you're going to see, I go back and check my documentation, and I come back and try it again, and you know, sometimes Hunky Joe just doesn't get things. And I finally realized that I've left the last lead off and I need to put it on there. So I'm crimping a ring terminal on there. And then by now I'm getting frustrated because the BMS, and you'll see what happens. I don't have any gloves on. I do have safety glasses, but there you go. And I freaked my shit out because I didn't want to touch this thing. So what do? I grab a pair of metal scissors to break the connection because I'm afraid this battery is going to go into meltdown mode. I'm tangled up with other cables, and I flip it around and it hits it again. Oh, isn't life wonderful? And then finally I come to my senses and I'm able to flip it with less gusto, and there you go. So yeah, now I'm trying to put the battery caps on. Yeah, so when that battery arced that way, I could have had metal pieces go into my eye or into my hands. So always make sure to wear your gloves. Don't take any of this for granted, and be safe. Don't be like Hunky Joe. Meanwhile, what I do want to show you is that down there. Can you see it? Can you see it? Well, here, it's not important I be in the shot. What's important is this is in the shot. So here you go. Here's the final result. Here is my homemade battery with my cells that I got from EEL Battery, and I cannot recommend this company highly enough. Each one of these cells have been tested by me. Each one of them put out more than 100 amp hours apiece, some 104, some 105, right around there. I spent about a week top balancing all the cells, charging them, discharging them, and then top balancing them. And then I have my JK BMS hooked up to it right here. As you can see, everything's just kind of hanging around right now. I got my shunt here, which measures how much electricity goes through, or how many amp hours I use, and then all the leads on the top of the battery are in place. I have charged this up with the solar system, with the solar charge controller, off the panels. I've pulled up to 40 amps out of this battery pack, which is the most I'm going to be pulling out of it at any one time. None of the connectors got hot or anything. It's in good shape, and I will continue testing this battery bank for the next couple of weeks. Right now, it's simply running my desktop, my workstation, and this lamp and this little wax cube heater over here for now. I don't have the rack on it. I will as I get more batteries, because I'm going to end up probably with a total of 4 battery banks is the plan, so that'll give me 400 amp hours of storage. Right now, this battery bank is at 24 volts and 100 amp hours, so if I put 3 more in parallel, I get a total of 400 amp hours at 24 volt, and that should be enough to power my rack overnight when there's no sun out, and then I should then be able to get enough solar panels to charge my battery bank during the day. Hopefully, if we have good weather. And this is still a work in progress. It's a bit of a mess, I know, but it's still a work in progress. But the plan is to put these units all on a shelf, tie it all together, make it look nice and neat, and then put some kind of cover over the top to protect it from anything falling on top. Right now, here is my protection. Right there, a nice towel. That way, if I drop any metal tools on top of the battery, I won't get a short circuit. And as you saw in the video, Hunky Joe made a bad mistake. It could have cost us. Now I'm doing all this today with a bad thumb. Look at that. You want to see some? Look at the blood. Yeah, I was in the kitchen making lunch, and I was slicing a potato on a mandolin, and I didn't pay attention, and I cut I cut the corner of my thumb off. Isn't that funny? No, I'm not going to the hospital. Hospitals are for babies. I don't need no hospital. But, you know, there it is. There's my solar setup. You know, I'm working with new camera angles, so you're just going to have to get used to it. And hopefully I won't hit the ceiling fan. But there's my setup for now. Eventually it is all going to be going into the server room, but for now we're just gonna, you know, we're just gonna do it like this. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun. Let me show you some other stuff though. Look at the test equipment required. I'm going to do a whole video on this and how I test these cells. But look at the equipment I've had to buy. And thanks to Andy at Off Grid Garage for turning me on to this. This is the battery load tester. This allows me to test the individual cells and charge them, and makes nice little pretty graphs on the computer. And then I have this one here, which is just basically it'll charge up to 30 volts at 10 amps. That's a battery charger or a bench charger. And then I have this little deal over here. I was playing around with some other cells. I'll show you this as well. But I have this little tester here, and this is a battery capacity tester. So what you do is you hook this up to your battery. Whereas this thing tests the individual cells, this thing can test a whole battery, you know, whether it be a 24 volt battery or a 48 volt battery or I think it'll test up to 120 volts battery. You basically put the leads on, and then you tell it how big your battery is and how fast you want to discharge the batteries. And it does it, and it tells you the capacity of your battery so that you know what you're buying. You're getting what you pay for, in other words. Hope that made sense. So this is just some of the equipment you need to have. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Yeah, it's going to make for a great thumbnail, let me tell you. Scared that pee right out of me. But there you go, folks. We hope you found the video entertaining and informative. Please give us a thumbs up down below if you like the video. Leave your comments down in the comments section. Boy, I can't wait to see these comments. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and click that little notification bell to be notified of new videos when they come out. Donate if you're so inclined. PayPal, Patreon, YouTube join function, or just become a YouTube premium member and cut through all the BS and give everybody a piece of that pie. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please come back and see us again. And don't forget, we'll see all of you on the other side.